Good morning, everyone. For Telesur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin today in Venezuela, right here in Venezuela, where President Nicolas Maduro has announced what he calls a pilot plan to tackle the opposition's economic war against his government and people. The president says that key leaders from social movements and security forces will be invited to attend a meeting later today to develop a strategy to crack down on speculative pricing, hoarding, and other tactics, other forms of economic destabilization. He says that those attempts are aimed at toppling his government and undermining the economy. Representatives from communal councils, youth groups, grassroots activists from his Socialist Party, and members of various state security and military bodies will be invited. As the United States and Cuba take steps to restore respectful relations, former President Fidel Castro has expressed cautious support for the Cuban-U.S. talks that began last week. Monday, Fidel Castro expressed his support for the historic talks. Still, he warned that the U.S. government shouldn't be trusted. In a statement, he said that cooperation and friendship with all peoples of the world was important, including political adversaries. He also argued that force should never be involved. Despite his distrust, the former president says that doesn't amount to rejecting peaceful solutions to conflicts. Moving to Peru now, protesters denouncing a new youth labor law that would cut back benefits for young workers are claiming victory after the law was repealed. For what led up to this repeal, here's our correspondent Raul Mora.
In a special session of Congress called by President Ollanta, the youth labor law has been repealed. The law cut labor rights for those under 25 years of age, such as salaries, vacation days, and severance. The final count was 91 in favor of the repeal, 18 against it, and 5 abstentions.
By debating this law, we are debating deep political issues. We are debating state policies to see if in our beloved country systems of exceptions are imposed as labour policy, or if a policy that considers the right to a dignified job and the workers as an individual with rights prevails.
While the debate in Congress was taking place, a fifth massive protest against the law started. They attempted to reach Congress, but were stopped by a series of police barricades.
There has been the awakening of the youth. We do not want to stop with this struggle to repeal the law against the youth, but for this to be the inflection point to initiate through change through mass youth organizing. From today on, we are going to continue mobilizing.
After the vote in Congress, the protest turned into a massive celebration, but the march continued. The latest poll released last Sunday shows that 3 out of every 4 Peruvians reject these labor rights cuts. Such results also show that the protests have been able to put labor rights on the political agenda, and there is great potential for the beginning of a new electoral movement that prioritizes working class issues. Reporting from Lima, Peru for Telesur, Rael Mora.
Thanks to Rael. Now to Mexico, where demonstrators gathered for marches. They came together to mark 4 months since 43 students from the Ayotzinapa Teacher Training College were attacked and forcibly disappeared by police in the town of Iguala, Guerrero. Thousands once again took to the streets in Mexico and abroad demanding justice. Our correspondent Clayton Kahn with more now from Mexico.
Once again, leading marches through the Mexican capital, parents of the disappeared Ayotzinapa students continue their demand for justice and the return alive of their loved ones. They say as each day goes by, their faith and trust in the authorities evaporates.
The government can stab anyone in the back like they did to us. We want a just and honorable government that wants to protect us and serves us, not a government that is killing us little by little.
With 4 different contingencies supported by civil and social organizations as well as thousands of citizens, they brought the city center to a standstill. They affirm that their protests are their own actions rather than fulfilling interests of other political groups.
The government always says we are being manipulated, but they are the ones manipulated by those from above, because we are not being manipulated by anyone. We make our own decisions.
The official investigation into the attack and enforced disappearance of the students has followed principally one line, pinning the guilt on corrupt officials and organized crime. However, the families of the victims and many citizens demand that other lines be opened.
One of the lines of investigation they do not want to open is the participation of the army, and well, the army has a long history of forced disappearances, especially in Guerrero.
Yet as uncertainty and distrust increasingly cloud the investigation, many here in the streets say that the continued social unity and growing clamor for systemic change is a certainty. Clayton Khan, Telesur, Mexico City.
Thanks to Clayton. The executive, judicial, and legislative branches of the Honduran government met in the National Congress to present a report on the first year of Juan Orlando Hernandez's administration. For more on their report, here's our correspondent Gerardo Torres.
The annual report given by Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernandez to Congress highlighted as positive achievements the agreement that Honduras nation signed with the International Monetary Fund, as well as the results of the country's militarization of the police force and the distribution of aid programs. Not all citizens, however, agree with the findings stated in the report.
When Juan Orlando speaks, the people read between the lines and draw their own conclusions. There are millions of people in this country who know what is really happening. They are trying to prepare the ground so that this liar of a president can try to govern for 50 years, but I doubt the people will allow that to happen.
Honduras is changing is the main slogan of the president, but according to official information, 6 out of every 10 Hondurans live in poverty, and the current programs only represent a momentary relief. Notwithstanding, these programs will be slashed this year due to the agreement signed with the IMF.
I don't know what the president is thinking because Honduras is going through its worst crisis ever. I say this because I'm a single mom and I have to take care of my home. For women, these are very difficult times.
The first year of Juan Hernandez ended with the creation by the opposition of a unified front which has pledged to challenge the president's attempt to remain in power longer than the legal period. A national demonstration is taking place on Tuesday called by the popular resistance to demand Hernandez's resignation. Gerardo Torres, Telesur, Central America.
Thanks to Gerardo. Moving on now, in the Syrian border town of Kobani, Kurdish fighters say they are mopping up the last remnants of the Islamic State group's 3-month siege. The Kurdish YPG militia first announced it had completely retaken Kobani yesterday after over 100 days of fierce fighting. Now they say they are clearing the town of improvised explosive devices left behind by the Islamic State group. The YPG's victory in Kobani marks one of the Islamic State group's few major defeats since it declared itself a caliphate last June, though the militant group continues to control vast swaths of Iraq and Syria. Anti-fracking protesters protested outside the Houses of Parliament in London yesterday as legislators gathered inside to vote on the future of the UK shale gas industry. Activists organized the emergency rally to contest the government's infrastructure bill, which could see landowners stripped of their right to prevent fracking beneath their homes. Members of the Environmental Audit Committee attempted to amend the infrastructure bill to bring about a halt to fracking in the UK. To end today, an asteroid measuring about 1/3 of a mile in diameter made a relatively close but harmless pass by Earth yesterday. That's according to NASA. The asteroid passed about 745,000 miles from Earth, roughly 3 times farther away than the moon. During the flyby, scientists also discovered that the asteroid had a moon of its own. The asteroid orbits the sun every 1.8 years. According to NASA, asteroid 2004 BL86 will be the largest asteroid to pass this close to Earth until asteroid 1999 AN10 flies by in 2007. 2 years ago, a relatively small asteroid exploded in the atmosphere over Chelyabinsk, Russia. More on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle. Have a great day.